Do you have a technical-minded kind of brain? Are you an engineer at heart? Is your boss or manager making you write policy? We're going to help you navigate that. And we're going to talk about what you need to do in an overview to properly document a network and what kind of policy you should have. Stay tuned and we'll get into it.
Welcome to Tech Topics brought to you by Cybervenger. We help keep small businesses stay protected and compliant with cutting-edge cybersecurity and IT solutions.
Okay, so you're a technical person, you're in charge of an IT network, you're a geek, you know how to build a firewall, you can put servers together, do virtualization, you can build a cluster in your sleep, and oh god, now it's time to write policy. Don't we all love that? Some people do. There are people who have writer brains, and God bless them. But we're tech people, and this is not really our alley. So let's keep it simple. Let's try and break it down to just starter pack of documents that you really should have in your network. All right, the first one you should have is an acceptable use policy. This is going to list all the things that are and are not acceptable to use that you can think of. Now, I know it's a dry document because it's just listing out a bunch of things that should be obvious. You should not put pirated software on your work laptop. You should not be surfing for porn. You probably shouldn't be using the company internet to go surfing for another job, right? Stuff like that. But there are other gray areas that are fair. Can you use your work laptop for some personal stuff? Well, I don't think anybody's going to bat an eye at checking your email when you're at home, on your personal email on Yahoo or Gmail or something like that, right? That's not that big a deal. There are personal uses that are acceptable. In fact, some people view that as kind of a perk that's part of the compensation package is, hey, I don't have to buy my own laptop now, right? And there's some gray area. It needs to be spelled out what you will not do. Installing a properly licensed and purchased video game, I could see why some end users might think that it's acceptable. I wouldn't want that on there. I don't think any software should go on a laptop that's company owned that isn't approved and specifically installed and managed by IT, but, write it down. If you don't write it down, it doesn't exist. Now, thank God somebody invented AI, and this helps out with this dry, fluffy kind of writing. You can take a document and just bang out what you mean to say, right? Just get it on paper, grammar and spelling, be damned, ignore all of that, and ugly formatting, and then shove it into AI and say, hey, can you reformat this and make it sound professional? Just go to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT will do that. The caution I will give you is that be careful what specifics you put in that writing. And things like your internal IP addresses, the name of your company. You don't want to give too much information to AI because you don't know what's going to happen with that information. It may go to the training algorithm. It may get mined and sold. You don't know. So keep it generic. But policy is kind of generic, right? So having an acceptable use policy, that's a good one to have. The next one that you should have, that I really think is a big one, is a maintenance policy. What do you do for regular maintenance? Obviously, you have to manage your patching. Patching, firmware, patching not just Windows, but third-party applications. Your line of business app needs to be patched and upgraded, that kind of thing. And in your maintenance document, there's a lot of different items. This is going to be a big document for you. You want to manage your end of life. You want to put dates up on that in this document, key dates. And this document should be reviewed yearly. In fact, that could be a maintenance item, review documentation. But you want to make sure that it's up to date. And you can put dates, big ones. Like next one that's coming up right now, October 2025. We should all be aware that Windows 10 is no longer supported after that. That means that you should be actively replacing your Windows 10 machines right now, or at least be coming with a plan. You should know if your main line of business application runs in Windows 11 or not. That's a question you should answer right away. But if you have these dates thought out, if you're managing your end of life, that's something that you'll be on top of, and it's easy to do if you write it down. And you get it one of those days when you're like, what am I doing today? Just bring up your maintenance plan. It should be right there. So get that written down. Other things to deal with is capacity planning. You should be doing some kind of baseline of what your normal system utilization is. Do that once a year, right? And then look at how much it's changing. Well, how fast are you burning through disk? What's the average RAM usage of your your virtualization environment? And, is it going up? Is it staying level? What's it doing? So capacity management is very important, especially because you need to budget for it the year before if you want to increase something. You need more disk space. You want to build up another cluster, Hyper-V, VMware, whatever. You're going to need to prove your case to management. So that's something that should be done in your maintenance plan and addressed. Of course, that brings up budgeting. Give some numbers. It's you maybe create a separate document for budgeting, or maybe it's part of the maintenance plan, something to review on a regular basis. Also, renewals. Things expire. Your firewall support expires. Your support contract with your IT company expires. Your internet connections expire. And that's a really good time to haggle out a rate is before the cutoff. So a lot of these contracts will have evergreen clauses. So if you don't send them in writing 120 days before the renewal date, they automatically renew. And then you get a cancellation fee all over again. You can put that in your maintenance document when this takes place. It's a good place to just schedule things and maybe dump that on a calendar somewhere. So that's important to do. And then a big one for me is permissions management. Do you have some review process whereby you can spot check users to look for things like scope creep? Somebody starts off as a salesperson. They get permissions to confidential sales information and pricing and stuff. Well, they get out of that sales department and now they're moved over to accounting because they had an accounting background. They needed an accounting person. They got a lateral promotion. Hey, why not? Happens all the time, right? And now they got accounting rights, but they still have the rights to sales stuff that maybe they shouldn't have, or vice versa, whatever. You get the idea. As people move around through a company, they begin to collect permissions. And in aggregate, they could end up pretty darn close to an admin if people have been there for 10, 20 years. Well, you should review that and make sure that that's not happening. Spot check your users. Another big one is to have a data map. You should have a data map document, and you should have either a separate document or included, this should be a data classification. You want to be able to classify your data. Do you have customer data? Is this data sensitive? Does it contain things like social security numbers, birth dates, names, home addresses? Those are all very vital bits of information that a bad guy can take and do identity theft. So you want to protect your customers from identity theft. Medical information you're required to protect for HIPAA. You can't do that if you don't know what that information is and where it lives. Once you have that, that's like the backbone of any kind of compliance you're going to have to do. So a data map, and the nice thing about this is this isn't all your problem. You can go to owners in your company and say, hey, this is what we're doing. Go to your manager, go to the CEO and say, hey, this is why we need this. As a business, they should be able to provide this information. And you could put that homework assignment and put the ball in their court, make them do that information. Then you just tidy it up and store it for them and maintain it. Another important from them is a data privacy and classification. We talked about classification, but data privacy and data retention. How long do you keep your backups? How long do you keep data on network? How do you respond to things like GDPR? The California one. If you're requested by a customer to delete all your data, you have to do that. That's a law in California and various other states in the European Union. It's something you probably should be able to do. How do you address that? That's a policy. What is your policy for that sort of thing? How long do you keep data? If you have it written down that you keep data for 7 years and you don't keep it for 7 years and you go to court, that could be bad. You could put you in an actionable position. If you say you get rid of it after a year and you hang on to it for too long, that could put you in that, you want to make sure that you're saying what you're doing and doing what you're saying, that you are in fact following that policy and that the policy is in fact what you should be doing. So that's a good one to have. Service catalog. This is a big one for me. Well, there are big ones, right? That's why I'm trying to do a short list. But service catalogs is vital because how can you maintain something if you don't know it's a service? Right? Okay, so service catalog includes all your applications. Microsoft Office, okay, if you're running that, which probably are, that goes in there. Who gets it? What versions do they get? What's your line of business app? Are you allowing people to have any other custom software? How do you track your licenses? If you have a service catalog, everything you're doing is there. You can compare your service catalog with a report from like an RMM tool or some kind of asset tracking tool, which is another thing you should do. And then compare it to and look for differences. You should not have anything showing up in your asset inventory scan that doesn't already exist in your service catalog. And service catalog probably should have a section under licensing where you can keep track, or at least a link to where you keep track of your licensing. So you can make sure you're not accidentally pirating, because that's a big liability. especially for Microsoft. Microsoft is brutal. You do not want to find yourself in an audit by Microsoft. And if you're purchasing volume licensing, you're, whether you know it or not, are agreeing to allow Microsoft to audit you. And they can and will have people show up to your place of business and do scans and all kinds of other stuff. If they find a single license out of place, they will fine the heck out of you. And they're really very unfair. I'm not sure how they get away with that from fair use and all. But that's a rant for another day. But that's why a service catalog is important. And service catalog also include things like remote access solutions. If you get hacked, you're going to want to know how somebody got in. And if you have people coming up with all kinds of different methods to remote in, maybe one department is using LogMeIn, another one's using remote PC, another one's using VPN, another one is, for some reason, somebody allowed remote RDP straight off a firewall, even though it's the biggest security breach ever. If that's happening, and you don't even know how people are getting in, and that's a nightmare to secure. So you should have a service catalog, and you should decide how people are allowed to remote in, and then write a policy under that as to who is allowed to. You don't want anyone having remote access unless they need it to do their job. You want to serve that principle of least privilege. That's security 101 kind of stuff. Onboarding and offboarding is a big one. What do you do when someone starts? They should have that's the time to have them read and sign their acceptable use policy. That is the time to make sure that who has what inventory. So if you can hand them a laptop, you should know who has that laptop, who has custody of that thing. Similarly, when they quit, you want to make sure that their username is disabled quickly, that there's a procedure for taking any data that they had access to and reassigning it to their manager or to a new replacement or whatever. Make sure that you get back all the equipment. Maybe it's a cell phone, maybe it's a laptop, whatever it is, that you get it back, and procedures and such for what happens if the employee doesn't respond. Deal with that, make legal fill some of that part out. But you should have a consistent onboarding and offboarding process. People get provisioned what they're supposed to have. The proper permissions are determined by their manager and recorded. And when they're way out the door, everything is cleaned up and returned, and make sure that they are deleted from everywhere, or at least disabled, so they can't access their work stuff now that they're not an employee anymore. Very important stuff. But beyond that, that's pretty much it for the day. Oh, no, it's not. How can I forget? Disaster recovery. Disaster recovery and business continuity, and incident response can be 3 documents or 1 document. I personally like to do a single large document of incident response. It includes backups and disasters, because you don't always know if a failed system is due to a cyber attack or due to a failed system. And it's the same process, even though it's a different thing that's happening. Is if do you really care that the building's burning down, or whether you've got a massive cyber attack that deleted all your data? Either way, everything's gone, right? Whether your entire network was encrypted by a hacker, or whether the building was burned down without a backup plan, you're screwed either way. And the way to solve it is kind of the same. So you could address that. You get your stuff off site. Make sure it's resistant to ransomware tampering. You want to address all those potential issues. A cybersecurity threat or a weather threat is still just a threat. I kind of like it 1 document, but sometimes it's easier to break up into 3. Business continuity is all about how does the business continue to do business despite X, Y, and Z being gone. Disaster recovery is more technical focused. How do you restore IT systems despite a disaster? A riot, a flood, a fire, sewer gas. I know, it's hilarious. I had a customer shut down for 3 months because sewer gas kept leaking into the building. That was a unique one. But whatever it is that takes you out, or a hacker, right? Cyber threat breach of some kind comes in and shuts you down. You should have ways to address that. Think about it ahead of time. Review it yearly. Test the technical responses. If you think that you can restore from backup to the cloud, you should have done that a couple of times, right? You should do that on a regular basis. That should be part of those documents. There's a lot I could say about that, and I have done videos about that, but just to itemize what you need to do, that's one of the things to do. And is that it? Security plan. This is the last one. You should have a security plan. What is your security policies and procedures? Are you going to use an antivirus everywhere? Are you going to use EDR in some machines, not others, to save money? Are you going to do EDR everywhere? Are you going to use a managed threat company? Are you going to segment your network so that certain more critical stuff is harder to get to? How do you defend your backups? I've done a whole video on ransomware readiness. You need to defend your backups in such that even if your environment is compromised, your backups are still protected, and it's a whole new hurdle from scratch the bad guy has to face. So the security plan, again, I can go into massive detail on that. I won't. I just want to itemize that. So just to review, you want your acceptable use policy. You want an instant response, backup, disaster recovery. You need a maintenance plan. This is your day-to-day work. You should have a data retention, data map, and define who's in charge of this data, and data classification, and a data privacy. You should have a service catalog. You should have an inventory. So you should have a way to programmatically, this is not a document, but you should have a tool that should allow you to scan through everything that you have and report and to compare it to what you think you should have. And then you should have an onboarding and offboarding process. And finally, last but not least, you should have a security plan that details all that. So that's the laundry list of things that every company should have. It's a lot, but at least if you break it down, you start with that 30,000 foot level and just go after one at a time, a little bit at a time. ChatGPT is your friend, but it's not your close friend, so don't give it too much information. But it can really help. ChatGPT, I found, can write all kinds of policy. It's great at writing policy or taking your blobbed, ugly-looking, unformatted text with spelling errors and grammatical problems and cleaning up to professional writing. So take advantage of that tool. This is already pretty well listed. This is a long-winded video, longer than most of them, but I think it was important to help out people who, like me, are kind of documentation averse. It's a challenge, but it's a discipline you could build. You can overcome it. The more you do it, the better you get at it. Just take it one bite at a time. And you got your laundry list now of what you need to write. Go write an empty document with a name for each one of those documents you have. Just write one at a time. And every year, review them and improve them. And over time, you're going to find you have a nice library of documentation that wasn't that hard to do. Not as hard as you made it out to be in your mind anyway. You can do this, I promise. That's all I got for today. I appreciate you watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.
Thanks for watching. We hope this video has provided valuable information to you. Be sure to share this video with other small business owners to spread the word about the importance of cybersecurity. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos like this. If you want more information about cybersecurity, visit us at www.cybervenger.com.